Yesterday morning, a man in a military uniform stood in front of cameras in Tehran and said something that made every naval strategist in the Western world stop what they were doing. His name is Brigadier General Ali Mohammed Naini. He is the official spokesperson of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and he looked directly into the lens and said, word for word, the armed forces of the Islamic Republic are waiting for the U.S. naval fleet in the region of the Strait of Hormuz, and are waiting for the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford. Waiting, not hiding, not retreating, waiting. He then added words that carry more weight than most people realize. He said, the initiative over the battlefield conditions and the end of the war lies with the Islamic Republic. U.S. forces will not be the ones to end the war. That is a direct challenge to the most expensive warship ever built by any nation in human history. A ship that cost American taxpayers $13.3 billion. A ship that carries more than 75 aircraft. A ship powered by 2 nuclear reactors that will not need refueling for 25 years. The largest warship ever constructed, 1,106 feet long, over 100,000 tons of steel, technology, and firepower, and Iran just said, come closer. We are ready. Before we go further, subscribe and turn on notifications. This situation is changing by the hour, and I will be covering every development as it happens. Now let me tell you why this statement is not just propaganda, and why the Pentagon is paying very close attention to what happens next in the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Gerald Ford entered the Red Sea on March 7th after transiting the Suez Canal. It was ordered to the Middle East last month as part of a massive military buildup. The carrier is now more than 255 days into a deployment that has already been extended to approximately 11 months. Vice Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Jim Kilby confirmed that timeline to the Senate Armed Services Committee just days ago, 255 days at sea. Let that sink in. The sailors on that ship left Norfolk, Virginia in June of last year. They were supposed to be home months ago. Instead, they went to the Caribbean for the Venezuela operation. Then they were rerouted to the Mediterranean. Then the Iran war started. And now, they are being pushed deeper into the region. NPR reported that some parents of crew members and multiple lawmakers have raised concerns about the impact of this lengthy deployment. Senator Mark Warner said publicly, and I want you to hear this, he said, it kind of adds insult to injury if you are deployed now for months beyond what you expected and the sewage system doesn't work. That is not a joke. The Ford has battled problems with its sewage and water purification systems during this deployment. Think about that for a second. But here is the part that most coverage is missing. The Ford is now heading toward a body of water where Iran has spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. The Strait of Hormuz is not open ocean. It is a narrow choke point, roughly 21 miles wide at its narrowest. 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through it, and Iran's entire military doctrine for the past 30 years has been built around one single scenario, an American carrier group entering that choke point. Iran's strategy is not to match the United States ship for ship. That would be impossible. Iran's strategy is something military planners call magazine drain. And when you understand what that means, everything about this confrontation looks different. The goal is to fire enough missiles, enough drones, enough mines, and enough fast attack boats from enough directions at the same time that American ships run out of interceptors before Iran runs out of weapons. Read that again. They don't need to win. They need you to run out first. The College Fars is Iran's anti-ship ballistic missile. It has a range of approximately 300 kilometers, travels at Mach 3 to Mach 4, and carries a 650 kilogram warhead. It dives at its target from above at supersonic speed, giving warships very little time to react. The Abu Mahdi is a cruise missile with a range exceeding 1,000 kilometers. It flies low, skimming the surface of the water, and uses artificial intelligence to alter its flight path mid-course. Then there are the hundreds of fast attack boats, the naval mines, the midget submarines, the Shahd drones, and the coastal missile batteries hidden along Iran's coastline. But there is one more weapon that has defense analysts particularly concerned. Reports emerged before the war began that Iran was in advanced negotiations with China to acquire the CM-302 supersonic anti-ship cruise missile. A defense expert at the Royal United Services Institute called it, and these are his words, a game-changer missile system that endangers carrier groups. It carries a 500 kilogram warhead and travels at 5,000 kilometers per hour while performing evasive maneuvers. 5,000 kilometers per hour against a ship that is 1,106 feet long and cannot exactly dodge. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think a $13 billion aircraft carrier can survive in a choke point that Iran has been preparing to close for 3 decades? Because that is the question the Pentagon is asking itself tonight. Now here is where it gets specific. The IRGC spokesperson did not just dare America's biggest warship. He made a series of additional claims that are worth examining carefully. He said that American warships, vessels, and all fighter jets have fled the region and are stationed at a distance of more than 1,000 kilometers. To avoid Iran's missiles and drones, he said American soldiers have fled U.S. bases with their backpacks and have become scattered in cities of the region, with some taking refuge in hotels. Now, CENTCOM has publicly denied these claims, but the IRGC spokesperson then asked a question that cuts deeper than any denial. He said, Trump claims Iranian missiles are finished and no longer have destructive power. If that is true, why do you not allow journalists and the media to publish images of the impacts and destruction? Why do you hide the casualty figures? That question has not been answered. What we do know is this: 2 carrier strike groups are currently deployed in the Middle East. The Abraham Lincoln is in the Arabian Sea, the Gerald Ford is in the Red Sea. Together they carry approximately 150 aircraft, and a third carrier, the George W. Bush, just completed its pre-deployment training and is expected to deploy soon. 3 carrier strike groups, that is the largest concentration of American naval power in the Middle East in decades. Think about what that tells you. But concentration of force is only an advantage if the geography allows it, and in the narrow waters around the Strait of Hormuz, concentration becomes something else entirely. It becomes a target-rich environment for an adversary that has spent billions building coastal missile batteries, training fast boats, warm tactics, and mining the seabed. The very thing that makes 3 carriers powerful in open ocean makes them vulnerable in a choke point. That is the math Iran is counting on. The IRG has already demonstrated what it can do in these waters. Since the war began, the strait has been effectively closed. On March 2nd, a senior IRG official confirmed the closure and threatened that any ship attempting to pass would be attacked. Ship tracking data showed a 70% reduction in traffic. Then traffic dropped to essentially zero. At least 14 tankers have been attacked. Major shipping companies Maersk, CMA CGM, Hapag-Lloyd suspended all transits. Insurance was pulled. The economic cost has been immediate and global. And now the IRG is looking at the Ford approaching and saying, "We are waiting for you." Trump responded by saying the Strait of Hormuz would remain safe for shipping and that he is considering taking control of the waterway. He warned Iran that they have, and this is a direct quote, shot everything they have to shoot, and that they better not try anything cute or it's going to be the end of that country. But here is the contradiction nobody is talking about. If Iran has shot everything it has, why is the Ford approaching cautiously? Why was its deployment extended to 11 months? Why is a third carrier being prepared? You do not send 3 carrier strike groups to confront an enemy that has already been defeated. You send 3 carrier strike groups when you know the fight is far from over. That gap between what is being said and what is being done, that is the real story. The truth is more complicated than either side admits. Iran cannot sink an aircraft carrier easily. Cold War analysis estimated it would take upwards of 70 launched missiles and at least 12 direct hits to sink a carrier. But here is what most people miss: Iran does not need to sink the Ford, it only needs to damage it. 1 missile hit on the flight deck, 1 mine detonation against the hull, 1 drone strike that takes out a radar array, just 1. Any of those scenarios, any single one, would be the most significant attack on an American capital ship since World War II. The political and psychological shockwave would be enormous, and Iran knows this. That is why Nayini's statement was not a bluff. It was a calculated message designed to communicate one thing: the cost of entering that strait is higher than you think, and the IRG is prepared to demonstrate it. The decisive question is not whether Iran can reliably sink a carrier. That is the wrong question. The real question, as one military analysis put it, is whether Iran can keep the Strait of Hormuz unsafe, keep U.S. strike packages stressed, and keep U.S. missile defense magazines bleeding long enough to shape escalation on its own terms. Not winning the war, shaping the war, that is Iran's game, and the Ford is sailing right into it. That question is about to be answered. The Ford is moving closer. The IRG says it is waiting, and the narrowest waterway in the most dangerous region on Earth is about to become the most consequential piece of ocean in the world. What do you think happens when the Ford reaches the strait? Does it change the war? Or does it walk into exactly the trap Iran has been building for 30 years? Tell me in the comments, subscribe. I will be here covering every hour of what comes next.